Today we gather to understand a deeply troubling and tragic attack that has happened in Manchester and has shaken our country. On the 2nd of October this morning, a terror attack struck a synagogue in Manchester during Yom Kippur, killing multiple people and injuring more. This was not an attack on individuals. It was an attack on a community and was a test for our UK's counter-terrorism and security capabilities. In recent years, the UK has faced reoccurring risks of terrorism, both ideological motivated and lone actor small cell attacks. Intelligence and policing have prevented many plots, but the residual risk still remains high. Also, there's been a marked rise in anti-Semitic incidents that have been linked to tensions abroad, especially since the 2023 conflict between Israel and Hamas. Many Jewish communities have reported an increase in threats, harassment and security concerns. What do we know so far then? So far, the following has been confirmed. The target was Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue in Crumpsall, Manchester. This was on the morning of the 2nd of October on Yom Kippur, around 9:31. The methods that were used was a vehicle and stabbing. So far there's been 3 fatalities, that's including the suspect, and several others have been injured, 4 that are serious. The suspect was wearing a suspicious vest / device, as this was feared by the police. So this did prompt bomb disposal involvement. 2 additional suspects have been arrested and the investigation is ongoing. And the UK government has declared this as a terrorist incident and it is mobilising its national resources. So this is very much being treated as a marauding terrorist attack with a focus on community targeting, the Jewish worshippers, and high symbolic timing on their Yom Kippur. Now let's walk through step by step what happened at the incident this morning. 9:31, an emergency call was received. A car had driven into people outside of a synagogue, and there was also reports of a stabbing. Shortly after 9:31, when worshippers were already gathering inside the synagogue for Yom Kippur services, they have a 0900 start. At 09:34, firearms units were deployed, responding to reports that a security guard had been attacked with a knife. At 9:38, a Greater Manchester Police declared a major incident and shots had been fired by authorised firearms officers. This injured and then disabled the suspect. At 9:41, paramedics began treating multiple victims on the site. Subsequently, bomb disposal EOD teams were called due to concerns over the suspicious vest / device. Controlled explosions were carried out later in the day. Meanwhile, security perimeters, evacuation of worshippers, and forensic and investigative procedures were initiated. So where exactly did this happen? The synagogue sits on Middleton Road in Crumpsall, Manchester. The attack apparently began outside in the area where congregants would walk towards the entrance or be arriving. The vehicle was driven into pedestrians in that zone. The attacker then attempted to enter the synagogue, but this was prevented and intercepted. It looks like there was quick action by the congregants' security and this may have blocked further ingress. After the suspect was neutralised, the suspect's body area was secured under bomb threat protocols. Evacuation and cordons were put in place. So what's the casualties and damage that's been done? So you've got 3 fatalities. This is including the attacker. So far from the research I've done, there's 5 people that are injured and 4 are in serious condition. Some of this were injured by the vehicle and others were injured by stabbing. Looks like the synagogue structure itself did not sustain any major damage. So it looks like the primary impact was on individuals rather than a building. The suspect's vehicle and body area required a controlled explosion later on in that day. This does indicate that the area was hazardous. Secondary actions then. 2 additional suspects have now been arrested and the investigation is ongoing. There were searches and raids around nearby properties. Security presence has been increased around synagogues around the UK, especially in London. And the UK Home Office and counter-terror agencies are coordinating to assess threat levels and public warnings. Now let's have a look at the methods, okay? The responders and what tactical lessons can emerge. This is what you could look at as a hybrid method. The attacker used vehicle ramming phase, and then he also ended up stabbing individuals. What this can do is increase the complexities for our police forces. Occurring on Yom Kippur, one of the holiest days in Judaism, and targeting a synagogue raises both motivational force for the attacker and a heightened symbolic impact. The attacker apparently wore a vest or device that looked like an explosive. This then forced the police officers to treat him as potentially suicidal bomb threat. This then complicates the immediate engagement. Then we've got the location. Outside a place of worship is inherently vulnerable. People do congregate. You've got entry points and you've got limited protection on external approaches. Defensive security posture and initial resistance. The synagogue likely had some level of security or guard presence, given that synagogues often maintain a heightened vigilance, especially given to prior threat levels. Also, reports do indicate that a security guard was attacked, and it was this security and congregants that prevented the attacker's full entry. Quick reaction there likely limited casualties. The proximity of authorised firearms officers and the speed of deployment was critical. The firearm units were called within minutes, and then shots were fired shortly after. That is a rapid and great reaction given the complexity of the threat. The use of protocols then. Greater Manchester Police activated Operation Plateau, the protocol for active terrorist attacks. Operation Plateau is designed to coordinate multi-unit responses, managing staging areas, triage, cordons, and a tactical entry when an attacker is in motion. In UK counter-terror doctrine, these protocols define roles for armed officers, incident commanders, casualty evacuation, etc. Then you had the parallel use of bomb disposal, the EOD. This is showing a layered risk: vehicle, knife, and possible explosives. This then required secondary safety checks before forensic treatment could fully enter. The dual threat environment, so your active attacker and your suspected bomb. This then slows the clearing and securing of the site, and then could elevate the risk to officers. What was good to see was the rapid response, from when the call was made to when the authorised firearms officers turned up to when shots were fired, and the target was neutralised. Then you had interdiction before full access. The attacker was prevented from fully entering the synagogue. This has likely saved many lives. Then you've got the use of standard protocols, the activation of Operation Plateau. This shows that the forces were trained and prepared for this kind of scenario. Then you've got the coordination of supporting services such as bomb disposal, medical teams, security perimeters, evacuation. This all seemed to be mobilised in parallel. What challenges or sort of gaps did the police face? Identifying the attacker under a bomb threat. The presence of a suspicious vest or device forced the cautious rules of engagement. That likely slowed them down slightly. I saw the video. You had crowd control and safe evacuation. In such a sensitive site, such as a religious gathering, also managing panic, you had exit routes. Ensuring congregants are moved to safety without further exposure is challenging. What intelligence or prevention have we got? How did this individual get so close? Were there missed signals, radicalisation, prior surveillance, travel, communication? Could there be resource surge capacity? If multiple attacks or coordinated threats simultaneously elsewhere, can existing forces scale quickly? Then you've got post-incident coordination, forensic, medical. Investigation must be managed without compromising security, but also quickly to preserve evidence. From a tactical perspective, the incident highlights that hybrid attacks such as vehicle stabbing and bomb threats, remain among the most demanding to counter, and that initial window is extremely tight. What's the political and public response? The UK's highest level leadership responded swiftly. Prime Minister Keir Starmer cut short a European trip to return and convened an emergency Cobra meeting. Expressions of solidarity came across from the political spectrum, religious communities and international actors. The government has pledged an increased protection measures for synagogues and Jewish institutions nationally. What's the community fallout going to be? Jewish communities in the UK and abroad will likely feel a heightened fear, anxiety and vulnerability. The attack hitting them during their holiest day amplifies the psychological impact. What's the national security and counter-terror posture? The UK's terror threat level will likely be reassessed upwards. More resources will flow into counter-terrorism, surveillance, community policing. Intelligence, both domestic and international, will be critical in identifying networks, funding, communications that have been a link to this attack. The attack strengthens the argument for a more robust protect and prepare posture across all potential soft targets, such as religious sites, public premises, schools. This tests whether the UK's existing security and emergency response machinery, such as the police, MI5, Home Office, local authorities, can scale to handle new and repeated threats. What we need is an increased investment in human intelligence, in communities, and improved liaison relationships with local faith community leaders to detect radicalisation early. We need enhanced monitoring on online radicalisation. In communications, financial flows, we need closer cooperation with global and foreign security services to detect cross-border influence or direction. We need to maintain tactical readiness. The police responded quickly and sharply. They were absolutely brilliant. They need to stay on top of their training. The funding needs to continue to go into the police. They need to stay competent at all levels. What we do now have though, in the short time after this attack, is the possibility of copycat attacks or coordinated assault increases after a high profile incident. You might have lone actors or small cells that may be radicalised via online propaganda. The UK needs to remain alert and vigilant. We need to stop the budgetary constraints. Funding and resources need to go into our armed forces and our police force. Today's attack in Manchester is a painful reminder that even in a nation with long experience of counter-terrorism, deeply symbolic targets remain vulnerable. The Jewish community remain extremely vulnerable, but the way we respond, tactically and strategically, will define whether or not we are more secure tomorrow than we are today. These attacks on the Jewish communities need to stop. Thanks for watching.